Some of the schoolmates who are personally, who have personally known the victim in the Brett Kavanaugh case, Christine Blasey Ford, Dr. Ford, are coming forward and they're sharing their experience going to school with her and also some of the things that they heard while they were going to school. And one of the latest examples includes a woman by the name of Cristina Miranda King. She went to school with Dr. Ford and she shared her perspective in a Facebook post, which soon went viral. She didn't expect the circus that she would then be pulled into, but I think it is important to share her perspective with you. Now, keep in mind that what she shares is not specified based on who she got the information from. So we don't know whether or not this is something that she heard because Dr. Ford spoke about it, or if Kavanaugh spoke about it, or if Mark Judge spoke about it. But here's what she shared. Christine Blasey Ford was a year or so behind me. I did not know her personally, but I remember her. This incident did happen, and here's what she says following that. Many of us heard a buzz about it indirectly with few specific details. However, Christine's vivid recollection should be more than enough for us to truly deeply know that the accusation is true. So apparently people had heard vague details about that occurrence. And remember, Dr. Ford said that she hadn't spoken to anyone about it until she went to couples therapy with her husband in 2012. So, I'm curious personally, if this was spoken about back then, where did these details come from? Dr. Ford said that she hadn't spoken about it.
But remember, she said that she locked herself in a bathroom and then ran out of the house. So it's when she heard the guys finally go downstairs. So it is entirely possible that the other people in the party saw that, or they heard it from Kavanaugh or Judge, and then those rumors spread around the school. Now, if you were in a court of law, this would be pretty weak evidence. It's secondhand, it's from 35 years ago. It's unclear how she heard it, and she heard rumors, she didn't directly witness it. Now, in terms of whether it affects your point of view on whether it happened or not, well, I always try to think of it in two ways. One is, what if the shoe was on the other foot? And the second is, just being human related to my own experiences. So I remember, and I won't get into the details of it, a particularly stark story that was a rumor in my high school. And so does that mean that it definitely happened and that it definitely happened in the way that I remember? No. But if that story came about in a setting like this, where it was either a Republican, let's say a conservative or a liberal justice that was up for the Supreme Court, and people said, that person accused the other person of this, I'd say, well, I definitely remember that story being told in high school. Now, that doesn't mean that it happened exactly in that way, but it does mean that certainly people knew about it back then. It's not a figment of someone's imagination. So it's just that, so when I look at it from that human perspective and my own perspective, I think it makes it a little bit more likely that it's true, just a little bit.
I mean, yeah, sure, a little bit. I mean, I would take this with a grain of salt. However, there is a bigger, I guess, effort being taken by people who want to back Dr. Ford, and these are people who went to school with her, who knew her personally, and they have signed a letter stating that they not only support her, but they believe her because they also experienced an environment where the boys at this elite school acted a certain way. And I didn't know this, but Julia Louis-Dreyfus is one of those people who signed the letter. She actually went to the girls' version of this elite school. And so she shared the letter on Twitter, and she also said, I was class of '79 and signed this letter. And to give you some more information, the girls' school is Holton Arms, and it says that Dr. Blasey Ford's experience is all too consistent with stories we heard and lived while attending Holton. Many of us are survivors ourselves. So 200 women have signed that so far, and I think that that means something.
Yeah, I think that Cristina Miranda King's comments are more relevant than that letter. That letter is relevant to give you the context of the times, but it says nothing about Kavanaugh or that particular party or that particular incident. It's just a number of women saying stuff like that used to happen with quite regularity. that's pretty vague. It just gives you some context, that's all. It doesn't mean that it's useless, it's that context is important. So 5 former federal prosecutors wrote an op-ed today talking about why they believe that Christine Blasey Ford's version of the story is very credible. And so I just want to go over it real quick for you guys, because some of the stuff they were saying backs up what we've been saying for a couple of days. They said, look, the fact that she told a therapist back in 2012 about this incident, and that would take as prosecutors, we would look at that very, very seriously. Like, why would she make that up 6 years ahead of time for something she has no idea would happen today regarding that person? She took a polygraph test. They said, look, it's not admissible in court, but we know in our experience that it is. It's relevant. It's an important piece of data that she wanted to take one, took one, and passed it. She is not particularly political, so doesn't have a deep motive here. If she worked in politics for some portion of her life or today, you might question her motive more. I like that they're thinking at it from a prosecutor's point of view as to what makes sense and what doesn't. And one more.
So one real quick, and we've mentioned this in our prior stories covering this. While she hasn't worked in politics, she has been a Democratic donor, and not a huge donor, but she's given small donations to Democratic candidates. So just to be fair, it's not like she hasn't had anything to do with politics.
Yeah, no, but I mean, she voted. I hope a lot of you vote. I don't think that that's a big thing. And her donations were small. They're not these Soros, Koch brothers kind of. She's not like a big donor in that sense. She's like a regular person who gave a little bit of money from time to time. So she cares about politics, but doesn't work in politics.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to be absolutely clear.
Yeah, that's right. And then the last one is the one we've been mentioning for a couple of days, which is that they say if someone is making up a story, and remember these prosecutors have had to deal with people making up stories, and they got to decide, do you prosecute the case, do you go forward, or do you not, right? They said for her to put a defense witness in the room makes no sense at all. Knowing that Mike Judge, the other person in the room, is friends with Kavanaugh and would likely be on Kavanaugh's side, if you were making up the story, you just wouldn't put him in the room. There's just, all that could do is hurt you. So the therapist one and the Mike Judge one are really good evidence that there's excellent reasons to believe her. She could still be wrong, she could remember wrong, etc. But when you add in today's news about Julia Louis-Dreyfus backing her, that's tiny. I mean, she happens to be a celebrity. You could technically say the vice president has backed her since she stars in Veep on HBO. But I think the Miranda King one is a little bit more relevant because we remember that rumor. It's just one more piece of evidence on top of what is already pretty good evidence that she didn't just make this up out of nowhere.
Right, and for me, it's not about us deciding whether or not Brett Kavanaugh is guilty. I mean, we can have our opinions. What's important is for an investigation to take place by the FBI. The FBI wouldn't do a criminal investigation since this isn't considered a federal crime. It's considered a crime on a state level. But the FBI would do what it was doing during the Anita Hill, Clarence Thomas sexual harassment case. They wanted to provide information so the Senate can vote based on all the information available in regard to the accusations, and that's what the FBI should do here.
Of course, Donald Trump, as usual, fabricated things about the FBI. He said they really don't do that. That's not what they do. Not remotely true. They do it all the time. It's called a background check. He said, well, they already did 6 on him throughout his different hearings earlier on too, when he was up for nominations for lower courts. That's true, but it's also true that in the Anita Hill story, the FBI jumped in and did another background check once those stories emerged because they wanted to give the senators as much information as they could before they voted. So there is excellent precedent for doing that and asking for that now. Unfortunately, the White House has to ask the FBI to do it, and Donald Trump, of course, says no way. 2 easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below, then you're a TYT subscriber. And second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.